As far as my background, I did undergraduate at Texas Tech University. I did my medical school at UT in Houston and did my residency in Galveston. And then I was recruited to come to Austin to another group, and that it didn't really work out very well. So in 1999, we started Hill Country OBGYN, and we've been going strong for almost 21 years now. So I have 3 sons. 2 are graduated from college, and my youngest will be a senior in high school this year. And both of the college graduates are gainfully employed, so which is good in this economy. So, and I will kick it now to Dr. DeCero.
Make sure. Oh my God, I'm not muted, right? I'm good. I'm Dr. Amanda DeCero. I've been with the practice now for about 3 years. I am mostly from Florida. I did my undergraduate at University of Florida, and then I did medical school down in Sarasota, Florida, at a smaller DO college, and then I did my training in Wilmington, North Carolina. My husband and I moved out here because we had a bunch of friends and we love Austin. I am currently pregnant and will be due with my first next month, so this is a very helpful chat for everybody. Because it's fun kind of being on the other side of it now. That's basically all I have. Yeah. It's hot.
Especially when you have a bun in the oven, right? You'd think the obstetricians would figure out not to have summer babies. All right, we'll kick it next to Dr. Hart.
Hi, I'm Chris Hart. I've been with Hill Country since 2007. I'm originally from Austin. I was actually born at the main St. David's back in the 70s, and have lived around Texas most of my life. I did my medical school in Galveston at UTMB, and then I went to residency at Oregon Health Science University in Portland, Oregon, and then came back and I joined Hill Country. I got lucky right out of residency. I've been now with Hill Country for 13 years, and I have 2 sons, both delivered by other Hill Country doctors, Maggie and Eduardo, and I. They are great kids, and happy to be here.
Awesome. We'll kick it next to Dr. Schneider.
Hey, I'm Dr. Schneider. I've been, let's see, where are we going to start? Back at undergrad at Southwest Texas, and then I went to medical school at UT Health Science Center in San Antonio and stayed there to do my residency as well. And went to Dallas for a year or so and wanted to get back to more South Texas. So I joined Hill Country OB-GYN, I think in 2003, and been there ever since. And I have an 8-year-old who I told not to, but she may come strolling behind us sometime. But, and yeah, I'm glad you guys are all here with us today. And this kind of, we've kind of started liking, from what I understand, this is my first Zoom Meet the Docs, but I heard it went really well last time. So welcome, and please feel free to answer any questions or ask any questions. That's me.
Okay, great, thanks. Dr. Quinn, you're up next.
Hi, I'm Melissa Quinn. I am originally from Austin, Texas, born and raised here. I went to undergrad at the University of Texas downtown, and then medical school in San Antonio. And then I moved up north to Missouri to do my residency, and that's where I met my husband, and we got married up there. We lived there for a while, and then moved down to Austin to get away from the cold weather. And so I've been with Hill Country now for 4 years, which is crazy how fast it's gone by. So we moved back here, joined the practice, and I have since had 2 children. I have a 2.5-year-old and a 7-month-old, both that were delivered at St. David, South Austin by Dr. Landermeyer. So recent experience with the hospital, and so very happy to have you all here today.
Thank you. And the only doctor that's missing with us tonight is Dr. Mello. and she may log on at some point. If she does, we'll have her introduce herself. So I'm going to move on to introduce Laura Evans, who is the Women's Services Director, and she'll introduce herself. And just a quick reminder, if you guys have any questions about anything that's going on at the hospital or anything about labor and delivery, start queuing those up in the chat so we can start answering some of your questions for you. But Laura, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, I'm Laura Evans. I'm the Director for Women's Services here at South Austin's Medical Center. And we're looking forward to all of you guys coming. I know it's a difficult time to come to a hospital, but I promise you we're going to take amazing care of you here. I'm in charge of labor and delivery, postpartum, and the nurseries and NICUs. And I've been here since about 2017, and this is an amazing place to have your baby. We have nurses that are really love their job and love doing what they're doing, and they're especially attuned to some of the anxiety that's around coming in here during a pandemic. And I will say that our patients are very surprised that it's not as scary as they think it's going to be coming. So I'm here to answer any of your questions about how things go here at the hospital or anything like that. So please let me know how I can help. Thanks.
Awesome. Up next, I'd love to hear from you, Donna. Donna is one of our just premier lactation consultants. She loves what she does, and you can totally tell. So Donna, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about lactation services at the hospital.
Well, my name is Donna Cordova. I'm one of two of the primary lactation consultants. My coworker is Candace Ship. We are very committed to supporting women on how they want to feed their babies, including breastfeeding, and it's very important to us. And we definitely do skin to skin and delay baths and all that stuff. We try to see every patient, but in the mornings we round, and if somebody's having an issue, the nurses will put you on a referral list, which means we'll make sure we get to see you. You can request to see us even if you don't have a problem. If you're worried that you might get missed, we'll definitely come and round on you. And I can't think of anything else right now, but you guys will let me know what you need to know.
Awesome, thanks. If you have questions about lactation, go ahead and start queuing those up in the chat. Donna loves to answer all kinds of questions about lactation. And then also on board today, we have Susan Auerston. Susan is a longtime good friend of ours, nurse friend, who teaches our childbirth classes. So Susan, why don't you introduce yourself? Hey, Susan, click that button that says unmute.
There we go. I can read. Good evening, everybody, and it's great to be here. I'm Susan Auerston. I got my master's degree right here in Austin, Texas, and I've been working with this fine group of doctors really from the beginning, the majority of them, because they've now been around for 20 years, and that's been a great experience. And I can tell you all picked an excellent and outstanding group to have your baby with. And I also know some of the staff at St. David's, and Donna Cordova for sure. We've worked together for years. So you're in the best hands ever with for your birth experience. I'd like to tell you very briefly about the classes we offer and reassure you that we have been actually doing our classes since March via Zoom. And I wouldn't have guessed it, but it's turned out so much better than I would have ever dreamed it to be. All you young couples are very tech savvy. I've kind of had to learn it along the way. But we've made fun out of it. You get all the very same content, all the same videos. And so a little bit that's lost is that we're not all together in the same room doing a lot of hands-on. But I still show you everything that I do. And I also show you all the different videos of real births. And in the 3 different classes, basically, one is our childbirth preparation. It's a 6-hour course. And we do it on a Saturday, typically, sometimes a Sunday. And if you go to our website, which is hillcountryparenteducation.com, or we also have a link through Hill Country's website through patient resources. It will give you a very detailed description of the course and what to expect, all of the content. Also a bio on our all RN staff that teaches, and we trade off at different classes. I've mostly been doing the Zoom ones since March, but I have also several other RNs that sub for me as well, and vice versa. The childbirth prep, we go through all the process of labor and delivery, the different phases and stages, and specifically identify what's going on with mom and baby, and then what's the role of my support person through each and every phase of that. And we review all your different options for comfort measures, pain management, relaxation, breathing techniques, all of the non-medical interventions. And then we absolutely go through all the medical options available and what are those really like and the pros and cons of that, so that you are fully informed of everything that's going to be in front of you coming up. And it won't be something new and scary. And you will have a chance to process all of that and ask a lot of questions. We also go through potential interventions that could come up. So those don't necessarily blindside you. You may never see any of them, but if they do come up, you'll know about them, and you'll know how to discuss them with your doctors and your nursing team. We also review what might be a reason for having an induction and what might be a reason you have a C-section. And so we also view a C-section delivery. And so it really takes a lot of the anxiety out of it by fully informing you of all of those things and being able to give you an avenue to answer all your questions. And I would just say the one advantage of video Zoom is the chat line, because people can be shy about what they want to ask sometime, and they think they're the only person that is going to ask this silly question, and it's not at all. And the chat can be very private, and then I can answer it for everybody. And then very briefly, 2 other short courses, 2.5 hours each, that we do on a Tuesday and Wednesday evening is infant care and breastfeeding success. And infant care is all your basic infant care, cord care, bathing, circumcision, definitely feeding and sleeping. Are we ever going to sleep again, and how are we going to do that? And so that you're really ready to bring home that newborn from the hospital, especially now with COVID. I know some people don't have family coming due to risk factors and things. And so really want to support you guys to have everything you need to bring home that precious new baby and to make it as least stressful as possible. And then breastfeeding success is really just kind of getting you ahead of the game so that you have a lot of information and a pathway to how can I really do this well right from the beginning and set myself up for a successful breastfeeding journey.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Susan. Appreciate you.
Great to be
here.
Hey,
I saw Dr. Mello had logged on through this. Dr. Mello, do you want to introduce yourself to everybody?
Sure. I'm Dr. Mello, been with the practice for about 3 years now. I came down from Fort Worth, originally was from Oregon though. We love Austin, definitely a great place to live and intend to stay here. I have 2 children, big age gaps, 21 and 7. And so a little different experience each time, and I'm happy to be here with you all and help you get a good delivery.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And then finally, I'd like to introduce Sarah and Paris from the Family Connects program. And if they would like to introduce themselves and tell a little bit about their services that they're offering for our patients.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. And hello, everybody. Thank you for having us. So Family Connects is unique to St. David's South. We've been with St. David's South for about 1.5 years, and we see over half of the patients there. The patients connect with one of our nurses during your postpartum time period, those early 3 weeks of postpartum. And I know that a lot of the conversation today will be geared around labor and delivery, but once you do have baby in your arms, we will be calling you from your into your room in postpartum and hopefully scheduling an appointment with us. Essentially what we do is provide support for moms, especially during this time. I know that social connection is especially important. for everyone's well-being. We check in to make sure that all, if there's any additional needs or resources that we can connect you with, we also do that. But because of COVID, things have changed a little bit. Normally we would provide in-home visits with one of our nurses, but COVID has changed some things. So we're actually adapting our services to provide 2 check-ins, one at 1 week postpartum. And I saw that Megan and Joe had a question about lactation consultations, and we also provide those at 1 week and at 3 weeks. You can also, I know that St. David's offers that, but we like to tag team together. So you'll have a nurse to contact you at 1 week postpartum, and then again at 3 weeks. Usually the first one's a brief check-in, and then at 3 weeks, it's a telehealth visit. Currently, it's available to families that live in Austin, Chavez County, as well as Bastrop, and that's mostly because we're most familiar with the resources in the area. I know there are families that live in Hayes, but the ones that live in Austin, Chavez County, and Bastrop are totally more than welcome to sign up for Family Connect's consultation. I think that's essentially it. If you are interested in signing up, there are various ways that you can do that. Usually, you would want to tell your nurse. Your nurse will provide a consent form that you would sign, and then they would give us a heads up, provide us your phone number. We'd call you in postpartum or your regular phone and set up the appointment then. It's pretty easy. All we really need is your contact info, your name, date of birth, and your baby's name and date of birth, and you're set. The visits are free, so you can kind of, that's not a factor. We're just really a source of support for you during those early weeks of postpartum, and we're there to provide social connection when we definitely need it, even if it's virtual. I don't know if I'm missing anything else. Paris is on, so Paris and I are the ones that call to schedule your appointments, and Paris is on here as well. I don't know if I'm missing anything else, Paris.
No, I don't think you're missing anything. Hi, my name is Paris, as Sada said. So I share with the role in Sada as far as contacting moms in their rooms, making sure that we're calling at a good time, making sure, we have the appointment that's going to fit you at your schedule that's going to work best for you, because after all, everything that we're doing is to support moms and to support families, so we're going to make sure we're meeting you and all of that. So yeah, I feel like I kind of covered all the basics, so you will definitely either be hearing from me or from Sada, calling you in your rooms or on your cell phones, whatever's the best method to contact you to how we can best help you guys.
Yeah, and I did leave one thing out. If you are interested in going ahead and providing your contact info, you can also request a connection, a Family Connects connection from our website, and I'd be more than happy to include the link in the chat box. You can go every day, and we'll keep an eye out for you guys and contact you whenever you have your little one.
Thank you guys so much. It's really such a great resource. So we really hope you take advantage of it. So, hey, I asked for questions and y'all really delivered on the questions. This question is for Dr. Hart. Dr. Hart, go ahead and read the question out loud and then take it.
Okay. Let's see. First question. Hold on. I'm operating the chat box for the first time. Hold on one second.
I'll read it. What's the process for getting tested for COVID for like scheduled C-sections or induction delivery?
So if we know that you're going to be coming to the hospital, then usually you're going to be called a few days before your scheduled admission. So if you're coming for a C-section or you're coming for an induction, you'll get a heads up when to come up to the hospital through their drive-through testing site. And so you'll get your swab at that time, and then they'll have their results available when you are admitted to the hospital. If you come in labor, so it's an unscheduled admission to the hospital, but happens, of course, very frequently, then you are swabbed when you get admitted. And those results it's about half an hour to come back. So pretty quickly we have those results.
Awesome, thanks. And the next question for Dr. Mello. If I test positive for COVID upon admission, will my husband still be allowed in with me?
So from what I understand, yes, your support person is allowed in with you still. But of course, we have to take all the precautions with you and your support person for a COVID positive person. That means, I'm sure people are going to ask, what does that mean? It means additional protective gear for the most part. And then, of course, we'll get with Laura on this. I'll probably punt it to her. But also, of course, support in helping to try to not to transfer it to your newborn.
Yeah. So if the person that comes in with you, your support person, if you are positive, one thing is they need to be well. So if your support person is sick with COVID, they cannot actually come to the hospital. And so you need to have someone who is well with you. But if your partner or support person comes in, we are going to give them all the protective gear they need to wear. And then there's a couple different recommendations around your baby, but the pediatricians here will talk to you about how the baby care is done. Essentially, the CDC recommends that the baby is put on isolation. There are a couple ways separated from you, but there's ways to do that either in the nursery or in your room, and it will need a separate caregiver. So if your support person can help give care to your baby during that time, with all of the protective gear on, and then we'll work with you as well as lactation to talk about breastfeeding, pumping, and all of those things. And some of that kind of depends on how you're feeling. There are some people who have positive tests that are feeling just fine and have no symptoms, and then some people who are not feeling well. So a little bit of that is going to be sort of a team effort on how we manage that situation.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
So I was going to say one more thing, just on that, and I know Dr. Quinn has been big on it too, and all of us. You do not want to get sick with COVID right at the time of delivery. As you can see, this is a horrible concern for yourself and for your baby and everything. So really, limit your contacts right now as you're approaching delivery. It's really the extra big time to be really careful, even though this is fatiguing what's going on right now. And you want to be around family and friends and things, but it is the time to buckle down right now.
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page with that. We would really appreciate if you and your support person are able to quarantine for 2 weeks prior to your delivery date. That would be great. So then it takes a lot of the worry out of it for us if you end up being COVID positive. So next question on, I'll throw to Dr. DeCero. When is the best time to register with the hospital for delivery?
Before you deliver. But we typically will give you a pre-registration form sometime in the third trimester, anywhere from 24 on weeks. And there's a form in there you're going to want to fill out, and then we can fax that. There's also a way you can do it online through the hospital. And that's like the pre-registration form. The more in-depth registration, though, would be if you wanted to call labor and delivery, and you can talk to someone, and they'll go through more of a thorough history and get all that taken care of. That way it's kind of completed before you go into labor. But ideally you want to do it. I would say probably before 36 weeks would be a good goal to have. But yeah, typically when the third trimester starts is when you want to start getting registered for the hospital.
And I can add to that just to say, we do virtual tours of the hospital. And so at that time, you'll talk to a nurse face-to-face like we're talking right now, face-to-face. And they'll actually tour you around and show you rooms virtually and everything. And then they get your history and your registration information. So I think it really helps to meet a nurse and kind of see what's going on, to take away a little bit of the anxiety around coming, and it gets some of your information to us early. So I'll put the labor and delivery phone number in the chat so you can call and make an appointment with us anytime.
Awesome, thanks so much. Okay, next question is a lactation question for Donna. Do you offer virtual consultations with lactation during this time of COVID? I know the first 3 weeks can be hard.
We don't have anything like formally set up. I have been doing some Zoom consultations for patients that have called the office and have issues that I think we can help just by talking if it's not over the phone. There are some private lactation consultants that are seeing patients. So if you're having a problem that is more complicated and you need hands-on assistance, we of course give you some referrals to some of the local local lactation consultants in Austin. I do want to mention that we do work closely with Family Connects. Lana Barbaru is the IBCLC over there, and she'll often let me know if somebody needs a call or any of that stuff. I also put in the chat box, we have a online breastfeeding support group. It's called South Austin Breastfeeding Support Group. It's a closed group we started 6 years ago with 6 moms. I have over 1,300 members, and I have 50 to 60 requests a day. It's a closed group, so you have to answer questions. So I make sure that you're not a business trying to advertise, because we don't allow that, that you live in the Austin area, and you're not somebody else that shouldn't be in a breastfeeding support group. So I mentioned in the chat box, if you just asked to join, just mention you're delivering at South Austin or that you're a patient of Hill Country, and I'll add you right away, because sometimes it takes me several days to vet people to make sure they are who they say they are. It's a very active group. These women really support each other. You can have access to me through the group as well. And so I really encourage you to join it. And I'll also go ahead and put in our office number for our lactation office.
Awesome, thanks, Donna. And a follow-up question, is there anything we can or should do before delivery to prepare for breastfeeding?
Nope. There really isn't. There's nothing. Sometimes I think people have heard that you should do things to toughen your nipples. That's an old wives' tale. Just bring yourself and bring a breastfeeding pillow if you have one. That helps. Just pillows in general help, because we never seem to have enough. I'm trying to think. No. Well, it's on the job training. You're gonna, if you take the class with Hill Country Education, we're just gonna tag right onto that and help you. We just want you to know to ask for help whenever you have a question or a concern.
Thanks so much. Okay, next question is, I'll say for Dr. Quinn. If my husband tests positive for COVID upon arrival at the hospital, can I have a different person, mom or sister, stay in the hospital with me as my one person? And don't forget to unmute.
Okay. So first, to clarify that question, I don't know if that means that they're saying that the husband's going to be tested. And I know I had some patients ask me recently if both the patient and their husband is going to be tested upon admission. And my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Laura, that just the patients are being tested, that their support people are not being tested upon arrival. So therefore, kind of in reference back to what Dr. Landemeyer had mentioned, your support person should not be sick when they arrive. So if they're known positive, they should not be your support person. So you would want to have another mom or sister or somebody else that would be able to be your support person.
Exactly. Hey, Laura, I'm going to send this question to you. Will we be laboring in a mask or wear them at any time in the process?
Okay, good question. So we do have universal masking at the hospital, which means everybody wears a mask. I wear a mask, you wear a mask. Especially when your caregivers are in the room, we're asking everyone to wear a mask. It can't, once your labor gets going and it gets more intense, it can be difficult to tolerate the mask. So with the mom, we work around that and try to, we want you to be able to tolerate your labor. But just generally, when people come in your room and during your whole time in the hospital, we are asking to put on your mask so that everybody's protecting each other, especially at this time where the community spread has increased such a great deal, and we don't want anyone who doesn't have it to get it. So Masks are difficult. I'm sure you all know that now because everybody's been wearing one and they're difficult. But for a laboring mom, we want you to be able to tolerate what's going on. So we will definitely work with you on that.
Exactly. And then follow-up question, are we able to walk through the halls during labor, or are you requiring people to stay in their room due to COVID?
You can walk through the halls unless you actually have, if you test positive for COVID, you need to stay in the room, as well as your support person needs to stay in the room.
Yeah.
And I know,
Okay.
Laura, I've been asked a lot, once the support person is there, are they allowed to leave the hospital, or do they have to stay in the hospital?
We really want you to stay in the hospital. Yeah. So it's more restrictive than we've ever been, of course. It's just to try to keep everybody as safe as possible.
And then Laura, next question, is a licensed doula currently allowed as part of your care team?
Yes, a doula is allowed in addition to your support person. So they just need to be someone who's certified and can speak to that. But we do want them here as part of your care team if that's something that you want.
And then Susan Auerston, there's a question about where can the virtual classes be found to register for, specifically for infant care?
Yeah, I did answer that there, but I'll speak it now also. Our website is hillcountryparenteducation.com. And so if you go to that website, you'll see all of the classes with descriptors, our bios, and you can pick and choose by dates. The dates right now go all the way out to September, and I'm gonna this month also put in all of October, November, and December. This time is moving much quicker than we all think. So, and if you have any questions, my phone number's on there, an email address. If you want to discuss, and I get people call me all the time about the classes and different questions. So please feel free to do that.
And there is never a situation where insurance covers any of these classes, is that right?
It has occasionally. I get, at least this is what I get, is I get a request for a receipt and sort of a description of the class, and they submit it. And so I believe some companies out there are getting it. And so I'm happy to do that.
Or maybe you could pay for it out of the health savings account type
Exactly.
situation. Yeah.
So
definitely that's something to call your insurance company about and check out for them. So, and so question about Family Connects, is that only for families in Travis and Bastrop, and patients that live in Hayes County aren't eligible? Is that correct?
So it's a little tricky with the city boundaries. I think a lot of these resources get a little tricky. We do make a concerted effort to connect families if they are falling outside of that eligibility area. We have someone on our staff that dedicates all their time to finding resources and keeping tabs on how those resources are changing over COVID. So if you just give us a heads up, I put in our number. That's also my work cell phone number. You're more than welcome to text me, and we would find other resources for you, similar resources for you. But there are parts of Hayes County that also fall in Austin. So just if you have an Austin address, you are eligible for Family Connects. If you live in Hayes and it's not Austin, just give me a text, and we're there to support you regardless of where you live or whatever circumstances.
Thanks. So next question for Laura, where can I get information for the virtual hospital tour?
Yeah, so I put that in the chat. All you have to do is call Labor and Delivery, and the number is in the chat, and then we will schedule you for that. And really, it's just a nurse and you and a camera.
Awesome, thanks. Next question up, Dr. Schneider, you ready to field a question?
Okay.
What travel restrictions do you have in place for women in the first and second trimester with COVID in mind, COVID related?
I think basically what everyone should do, I mean, just really at this point in time, if you don't have to travel, I wouldn't travel, especially obviously to places where there's surge. Now, obviously we live in a place that is having such a a large amount of COVID positive patients. But I mean, if this is the time where you just travel only if you really feel it's necessary. And, you know, there's pros and cons to both, you know, travel by car versus travel by plane. But at this point in time, if there's a more specific question about a type of travel or something, go ahead and add that on. But at this point, you know, I would just really stay close to home.
Next question I'll throw to Laura. Is there a particular entrance we should go to when we arrive at the hospital in labor?
So right now the north entrance is closed to anybody but badge access. So really everybody is going to the front of the hospital, which is at the ambulance, where the ER and the ambulance bay is. And at that point you'll be screened. Someone will take your temperature, give you a mask, and then get you where you need to go.
And that's the south entrance to the hospital, which is what I consider to be behind the hospital. It's far away from Ben White, so at the back to me. Next question up for Dr. Hart. Should support partners bring linens, pillow, blanket to the hospital, or is everything provided for the partner too?
So I think it's really important to know, you know, of course, labor is not always predictable. So if you show up at the hospital with nothing, everything you need will be provided for you. They have pillows and linens and toiletries, toothbrush, I mean, all the things. If you show up with nothing, will be there for you. That being said, if you have the opportunity to bring your own personal toiletries with you, your favorite pair of pajamas, and if you have a particular pillow that you like on your bed, bound to be superior to what the hospital has, which are, you know, the plastic covered kind of stiff pillows. And so just be sure if you bring your own pillow that you put a non-white pillowcase on it, you know, your favorite paisley pattern or bright blue or something, so that it won't accidentally get mistaken for a hospital pillow and the next patient gets a really awesome pillow. So make sure that you've got it sort of specially cased so that it doesn't get mistaken. But other than that, I usually, you know, it's just an overnight bag. You know, we're not staying in the hospital more than a day or two these days, generally. So, you know, a pair of pajamas or two and a toiletry bag, one outfit for the baby to go home in, and that's really all you need. You don't need to bring a lot of stuff.
Awesome, thanks. And then for Dr. DeCero, do you want to talk about what kind of pain management is offered instead of an epidural?
Yes, and I'm going to actually go back. There was one question that we skipped, I think. It was about hospital stay. I think it was how long after for C-section and vaginal delivery. So I'll do that. I'll do both.
Okay, go for it.
Typically for vaginal delivery, it's usually about a 36 to 48 hour stay, and that's starting after delivery. So if your labor happens to be, you know, longer labor, that's okay. It doesn't start until after you deliver. And usually the 36 to 48 hour rule kind of mostly depends on baby and if they need extra labs or extra monitoring. For C-section, it's usually about 2 to 3 days, just very dependent on how pain management's going, and just how comfortable moms are, you know, going home after having the surgery. But typically it's about 2 to 3 days. And then for pain management, besides the epidural, we do have medication that can go through the IV. And it's a good alternative if you're not wanting to have an epidural. That being said, it does cross the placenta, so we are limited as far as how far you are into your labor when we would give that. In addition, the more doses you get of it, the less it works, and it may not be, if it's to the point where you're needing more than what the IV is, usually an epidural is a good option, but we do have IV pain management for that as well.
And in non-COVID times, we offer nitrous that you can breathe, which can get you pretty far in labor, but unfortunately, that's a aerosolizing thing, and so we really don't want to offer that when COVID is kind of unsure. So even if you test negative, we've had some people that have then subsequently tested positive a couple of days later. So I think we're not going to probably reinstitute nitrous until all of this has passed. So next question, which is a follow-up question I'll just take to having to remain at the hospital. Are we allowed to order food delivery? Yes, you can order food delivery. And you know, if you would prefer to run out and run over to Whataburger and drive through, I mean, nobody's keeping your support person in the hospital. If they want to run and get food and come back, it's perfectly reasonable thing to do. We just, you know, try to limit the coming and going just because of the pandemic. So next question up for Dr. Quinn, who will be very good at this one. Help me with a list for the hospital bag.
Sure. So in your prenatal visits, at some point you should likely receive a folder from the hospital. And if you haven't received that, just ask at your next visit. We have it in the office in all the rooms. And it has a list of kind of typical things to pack for. And Dr. Hart was alluding to that before, just basically, you know, some comfortable pair of clothes, pajamas, or a nursing gown or something like that. Your own toiletries, again, they can provide that if you have to rush there, but you know, your own toiletries, toothbrush, that sort of stuff. Personal pillow. I brought my own, you know, pair of house slippers because you're kind of, you know, going around your room and in the shower and things, so your own house slippers. Now, my husband did bring his giant, well, it's actually very compact sleeping bag because I'm over there burning up hot and he's in the corner freezing cold, because usually in labor it's it makes women really hot. So there's always a temperature difference there. And then you can bring your laptop or something to watch, because your labor could be long and you might get bored. And so having something to kind of entertain yourself to do with that. And then, yeah, your baby book, you know, get your little footprints on. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, the rest of it, don't bring like 5 outfits for the baby. You're basically, the baby's going to be in one little thing or doing skin to skin with you the whole time. So just one outfit to go home with.
Awesome, thanks. Dr. Mello, I'm going to throw this mask question, this next question about masks to you. And it's to clarify on masking during labor. We're encouraged to wear masks when staff are in the room, but what about transition and second stage pushing? Is mom still supposed to wear a mask? Am I supposed to sleep with a mask on and leave it on when only the family unit, baby, me, and support person are in the room?
Yeah. So we're not getting absolutely crazy and Nazi with it here. Okay. So it's just really when your staff comes in the room. You know, it doesn't make sense if you're always around your family members to suddenly have to wear a mask around your family members. It's more when the staff is in the room. And then of course, I don't think it's reasonable to sleep with a mask on. And as Laura alluded to in the second stage of labor, when you're pushing, if you're struggling and things, of course, we're not going to make you not breathe and keep your mask on. So we will work with you.
Next question up, I might toss this one to Laura. If I decide to keep my baby in the nursery, will the staff bring him in my room for breastfeeding every 2 to 3 hours?
Okay, so I'm thinking you're not talking about if you if you don't have COVID. I don't know. I thought COVID on that one, but basically we really encourage you to have your baby in the room with you all the time. So we used to have a nursery, and babies would come and go every 2 to 3 hours for feeding. But now we do more of a rooming in model, which is better for breastfeeding, especially because babies, you know, we like them to feed on demand, and there's times when they really feed very often, but also just to get you and your baby, you know, to get used to being together and you to care for them. We also do recognize that moms and dads and other support people get exhausted. So especially our night shift nurses love to babysit. So they can look at you and go, you need a little bit of rest. So let's take the baby while you get some rest. And that's kind of how we do it. we don't really have that model where we have a nursery and the baby comes back and forth to you. So, and this is really just because we believe that this is a better for everybody involved. Dr. Landemeyer, you are on mute.
Next question up for Dr. Schneider. Will the support person have a place to sleep in the room?
Oh yes, I have all rooms have a place. It's kind of like a chair during the day and more of a bed during the night, or vice versa, depending on how long you've been up. So yeah, there's always some place for somebody, and in the postpartum as well. So no problem with that.
And I just will say, we just like this week got brand new ones.
Oh.
And so they're going to be more comfortable than the other ones were getting a little bit thin, and we were torturing the support person a little bit. So we got new ones this week, so they should be much better.
They're awesome, by the way, Laura. Those chairs are awesome.
Oh, good. Okay, so you may be able to actually get a couple hours.
That's exciting. All right. We covered the average hospital stay with a C-section. Next question. I'll throw to Dr. Hart. If I test positive for COVID, will the baby be taken from me immediately, or will I be able to nurse and give skin to skin for a little while?
And I know that that's the thing that people are most concerned about. Obviously, if you test positive for COVID, having the possibility that you may miss on that touch time with your baby. Now, remember, people who test positive for COVID sort of fall into two categories. There's sick people, and then there's people who test positive but have no symptoms. And so obviously sick people need to be isolated from their baby. And that includes even that immediate skin to skin and time at the breast. Now, people who are well, they're asymptomatic, but they test positive. Those people are going to have a discussion with the pediatrician about what is going to be best for their family. Are they going to be isolated from their baby? Are they going to, in which case you're going to be isolated from your baby? There's kind of no half and half. You can't be a little bit isolated. You're either isolated or you're with your baby. And so if you're asymptomatic, you may make the decision, I feel like I haven't been sick, or I was sick, but it was 3 weeks ago, and I'm not going to isolate from my baby. And that's a decision that you'll have, a discussion you'll have with the pediatrician at that time. And if you make a decision not to be isolated, obviously you can touch your baby. You can be skin to skin with your baby. But obviously if you're ill, that's not really an option, and that's not the best choice. Of course, if you're ill, you need to stay away from your baby until you've recovered. Is that pretty accurate? That's my understanding.
That's pretty much, yeah.
Can I add something to that? If you are isolated from your baby because you're sick, or you choose to isolate, you'll be provided a breast pump, and we'll help you pump so that you can still provide your baby with breast milk. So I just doesn't mean you can't breastfeed if you are isolated from your baby. So I just want to make that very, very clear. We'll help you protect your milk supply. That milk is precious. It's probably our first real vaccine we might have for COVID, because you're already making antibodies to fight it in your breast milk. So we encourage breastfeeding and breast milk for COVID positive moms, and we'll be there to help you with that.
Hey, Laura, this is Lisa. Can you mentioned something about isolating in the room. Can you expand on that?
Sure. It's really the separation. So they talk about separating mom and baby, and really sort of like social distancing. So we put the bassinet, and we put like a closed bassinet, and we want it to be 6 feet away from mom's bed, but baby's still in the room. And then the baby is cared for by a well caregiver. If your support person is well, can help with that baby care, and as well as the nurse. And so that's kind of separation without isolation. And that's one thing that the CDC has discussed. So many people have opted for that. Some have opted for total separation. And then stuff in between, just based on our pediatricians and their conversation with the family.
Thanks.
Sure.
Okay, so Dr. DeCero, next question for you. Has postpartum care changed for mom or baby during these times?
reading this right, it's based off of staying in the hospital during that time. It hasn't changed, except that I do hear from the postpartum nurses that everyone's getting a lot better sleep now that they don't have as many visitors, and their overall well-being and, you know, mental status is a lot better. So that's actually been a positive since all of this has started. Because before, when people were having multiple visitors coming in and out, and just, it was a lot. So everyone's very well rested from what I hear. So I've only heard positive things. Otherwise, it's the same kind of care that you would get even before.
All right, next question up for Dr. Quinn, and this is a woman after my own heart. If I know I want an epidural, can I request it before delivery? Before I arrive for delivery?
Well, certainly as soon as you walk in the door, you can let them know that you want one. They will be ready. They have to do some preparation, you know, get some blood work back on you to make sure that all your blood counts are okay. Have you fill out some consent form, and anesthesia comes and talks to you about it, and then they can place it. So, you know, I usually ask when I have a patient I'm telling to come into the hospital, like, what is your pain control options? Like, are you planning to get an epidural? And then I'll let the hospital know, like, oh, she wants an epidural, be ready. So.
I think it's important to note that we have in-house anesthesia, so we don't have to, you know, make a special request to have an anesthesiologist come. They're in the hospital, and they'll be there when you call them. So.
Yeah, and then, you know, in relation to that, if you're not sure what your pain threshold is and what you want to do for pain, you can totally just kind of see how labor goes. And there's not really a too early or too late time, except for the baby still needs to be inside. So you can certainly kind of let labor happen, see how you feel. And if you kind of start getting to the point where, like, wow, this is getting a little bit uncomfortable, I think I'm ready to cross over and get an epidural, just make sure you're talking with your nurse that's taking care of you and the care team, so that they can kind of help coordinate, because if there is the anesthesiologist that's there that covers labor and delivery, and they can kind of help guide you about timing for, like, okay, yeah, the anesthesia is available, they can come get you the epidural right now, and so that kind of helps with coordinating with your nurse, because again, they have to kind of prepare you, and they want to get that in a timely manner so that you do get that pain relief when you're ready for it.
Exactly. Okay, next question up for Laura. Is it better for the support person to drop the mother off at the entrance and then park the car, or for both to park and then walk to the entrance together?
It really depends. It's either way is fine. I would just, you know, if you can walk in together, that's always comforting. But you know, if mom seems to be very active and you feel like it's important to get her there quicker, you can just pull up the car and help her out. And then, you know, no one's going to tow your car. They give a lot of respect to anyone who's about to have a baby. And so, you know, you can take her up. You could even probably take her up and then come back down and move your car, depending on what the scenario is. So we'll be supporting you whichever way. If you have someone, if you are scared in your car, then just come to the front and we'll take care of you. But any of those options are fine.
Awesome. Next question is about, can we have our children visit after delivery? And unfortunately, no. There's only one support person that's allowed to come to the hospital during labor and delivery and postpartum, and we aren't allowing any visitors. So no, sorry, your children won't be able to come. Everybody's been FaceTiming their kids. They just bring the iPad and FaceTime them, and it's actually sort of a sweet time with just you and the new baby. And so if you can spin it to a positive light, I know it's very difficult, but unfortunately, because of everything that's going on, we just can't have any extra visitors coming to the hospital. So I'm sure you understand. Donna, next question for you. If we wanted assistance with the breast pump, do we need to bring that in at admission, or can the support person go retrieve it later on? And car seat, also, can we leave and get that upon discharge, or does that need to come into the room the whole time in the beginning?
Well, I can speak to the breast pump breast pump part. I'm going to let Laura speak to the car seat part. You're certainly welcome if you want to bring in your breast pump. Now, there's a lot of new pumps on the market, and most breast pumps are pretty simple, but there are some new ones that we aren't as familiar with. So I advise you to go to the website for the company that makes your breast pump and look at their information. If you're still having trouble and you want to bring it in, we'll be happy to help you with it.
And for the car seat, yeah, so the car seats are usually brought in by families kind of at the end. So yeah, you can go out and get the car seat and bring it back. That's fine as long as you guys are well. And yeah, because sometimes it just takes up a lot of room in the postpartum room, and people don't really necessarily want that. But you can bring it in also if you want, and keep it in the room with you.
So you can bring it, I didn't speak to that in the breast pump question. You can bring it in with you when you come, or you can have them just get it with the car seat. It's usually something we'd rather go over when you're going home, because the first day when you're breastfeeding, you don't realize how busy you're going to be. Just breastfeeding and all the people that are going to be in and out of your room. So you usually don't have time to even think about the breast pump until you're going home anyway. So same on that, same answer for as a car seat.
Okay, and Laura, what would the protocol and process for the NICU department, any changes for that during COVID at all?
Yeah, so NICU, we allow one parent in at a time with the baby. And we do allow 2 parents. So when the baby's born, there will be 2 people that get the baby's band, and that will be mom and the support person that she chooses to have the baby's ID band. And then the baby will have 2 of those bands on. And if the baby's in the NICU, then the allowed visitors are just mom and then the other person with the bracelet. We typically do not want them to come in together, and that's because our NICU is kind of small, and so we're trying to keep the amount of people in there to a certain number. There are times when there are not a lot of babies, and so we will kind of allow maybe 2 at a time, or maybe once a day, and that just depends again on the census of the NICU. And this is all in an attempt to keep the ability to distance from other families and from other people while you're there.
All right, next question. I feel like I haven't heard from Dr. Mello in a while. Are there any special considerations or processes when considering cord blood banking?
Sorry, had to unmute. So really, you need to have selected a provider of the cord blood banking that stores the blood for you ahead of time before your delivery. And we do have information on that and those providers at our clinic. So just ask if you're interested at all. And then what they do is they provide you a collection kit. You bring it to your delivery. We are all experienced in collecting the cord blood, and then they give you contact information because it is time sensitive on how to get it back to the company and into storage. And so really your first step is just finding the company. We have rehab resources, and we'll get you down the route of getting that collected for you.
Awesome. And then I think this might be the last question. If there's any other questions, stick them in the chat now. I'll send this over to Dr. Hart. Is there a list of vaccinations that we should have before giving birth for the mom?
So that list right now is pretty short, and that is your update on your Tdap shot, which is the tetanus, diphtheria, acellular pertussis. We're really trying to vaccinate against pertussis for every mom between 27 and 37 weeks. Here in a couple months, we'll also be recommending the flu shot, which we recommend for all pregnant women as soon as it's available. And so, unlike, I guess, what we know about COVID so far, we know that pregnant women are at higher risk of getting very sick and dying from the flu than the general population. And so we'll be bugging you about your flu shot when that season comes. But right now, it's just your Tdap shot between 27 and 37 weeks. That's it.
Awesome. Yes, and I did accidentally skip a question about medical records. No, you do not need to bring any medical records to the hospital. Our computers are linked with the hospital computers, and your prenatal just automatically goes over there. So that won't be necessary for you to bring any records to the hospital. Does anybody that's on the chat call have a recommendation on a company that encapsulates the placenta? I do not.
If I don't know of any companies, but really ask a lot of questions about their sterility practices. You don't want to make sure, because this is a blood product, it's a body tissue, and you want to make sure that they are really keeping your tissue and blood separate from other people's tissue and blood. And so you want to ask really detailed questions about their sterilization practices if you plan to encapsulate your placenta.
I'll toss this next question for Dr. Quinn. For the birth plan, how long should I request for delayed cord clamping?
So generally speaking, I would say that we're all fairly universal in doing delayed cord clamping unless there is a medical reason that we need to get baby handed off to NICU because we're very concerned. But for the general time frame, you know, by the time baby delivers and we're kind of stimulating baby, you're getting about a minute and a half delayed, and that's probably the typical amount of time for a delayed cord clamping.
That's about pretty much whatever I think everybody does. Next question is about the flu shot for a newborn. Should we get the flu shot for newborn too? So that will happen later at the pediatrician's office, and I believe they have to be a certain age for that. Does anybody know?
1.
They have to be a year old to get the flu shot.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's why you know, it's that herd immunity. You try to protect your baby through you and other people around them. And that's why it's really important that, you know, you consider getting the vaccine at this time, and, you know, partner and anybody that's going to be around that can, and other kids in the house.
And I'm going to toss this next question to Dr. Schneider. Could you go over the process of steps if we believe we're in labor for example, if the water breaks or if we're having contractions, or what should we do? When should we call?
Okay, so if you're full term, then we usually go along with either a 512 or a 511, basically where your contractions are about 5 minutes apart. They're each lasting at least about 60 to 90 seconds. And once that's been going on 1 to 2 hours, that's a good time to at least call. That doesn't mean you have to come in. A lot of that depends on what your plan is, how far away you live, you know, but at least we'll talk with you at that point and kind of together make a decision whether it's time for you guys to come in or not. And if so, then we'll call the hospital and let them know you're coming. Now, if your water breaks, if you've been having contractions getting closer and closer, you've already called us once, and then your water breaks, then you may want to go ahead and call us again, but start heading on in, because things may pick up and go pretty quick at that point in time. On the other hand, if you just wake up and all of a sudden, you know, there's just a splash, but no other contractions, go ahead and still call us. You don't have to drop everything and run at that point. But we'll want you to start heading on in. And once again, we'll let the hospital know. And some of this will depend on, like I think Dr. Quinn said earlier, what your pain control or what plan is. And also if your Group B strep test, you'll have a Group B strep test if y'all haven't already, around 36 weeks. And if that test is positive, then we'll want you maybe to come in a little earlier, especially if it's your second or third baby, to make sure that we have enough time to give you the antibiotics. So that call to us we ask you a lot of information, and based on that, we can really help guide you on, you know, when to come in. And like I said, we'll also let the hospital know that you're coming.
So back to the prior question, I misspoke. I just looked up, CDC says 6 months for flu vaccine for infants. You have to be a minimum of 6 months old.
Thanks, CDC, and thanks, the internet. All right, and then for Donna just mentions, if you've already asked to join the breastfeeding support group, then you've already been added, so welcome. And I think that's all the questions we have for tonight, and that's all the time that we have. I hope this has been really helpful for you. Anybody else on the call have anything that they want to add?
Looking forward to seeing y'all. stay cool. I know the pools are closing down, so be careful out there.
Yeah.
I think the thing that I've really appreciated as we've gone through all of this is that childbirth is the same. I mean, you know, people are still having babies even from when they started shutting down in March. The babies didn't get the memo about quarantine. So come to the hospital, have your baby. It's still going to be great. It's going to be a story to tell. It's going to be great.
All right. Thanks everybody for coming. If you have any other questions, feel free to contact us.